Ain't no woman should be living by herself at times like this. Plus, they treats us far better down here." Floyd knew those parts better than most and, as such, knew the good from the bad like he knew the back of his own hand, and mine too, let him tell it. Although it was late summer, it was still hot, the date on the calendar meaning nothing when it came to Mississippi and heat. The plantation went for miles in both directions, one of those places where there was nothing, then something, then nothing again for acres at a time. 90 miles from Jackson, 30 miles from the nearest interstate, tossed out there amongst the coyotes and armadillos. The cotton capital of the world, they called it. It bears a starkness that can only be said to exist in the furthest reaches of one's imagination, as one would picture hell to be if it were an actual place on this earth that one could see and feel. A wolf in sheep's clothing, Daddy would say, an aphorism that for only that reason remains a jewel. The rain dries quickly, the ground a pillowed bed, the marsh a thirsty bowl. Those cotton sheets a white covering for the night, lulling so gently and quietly into my ears. Nothing ever happened except for the rain and plows, or maybe a loud truck occasionally came roaring down the street, or, if they were lucky, a car passed with blaring music, but nothing stirred in the fields. Plantation life was often a slow and steady process with little to do between planting and harvesting, except maybe check for whiteflies or squirrels on the bolls. On the day I arrived, the ground sat completely void of any human life until we'd actually made it inside the house. The cool air met us at the door as Floyd gave a shove to my backside with his white hands. "Don't mess around and let out the cold," Floyd barked. We walked quickly into the kitchen, where a woman stirred up something awfully good, especially to one in my condition, having traveled most of the day and foolishly packing very little to eat. The woman was of a sturdy build and not fond of smiling and, as such, gave nothing more than a nod in my direction when Floyd introduced us, continuing her duties in silence while we continued through the kitchen and out toward the parlor. Floyd had mentioned her in previous letters to me, said her name was Silva, and she had a family in Lafayette and some parts of Jackson. Said she was a snitch and couldn't be trusted with a secret around a deaf or a mute. "You stay away from her," Floyd said as we entered the parlor, quitting his speech right quickly as we came upon the mister of the house. The pleasant breeze inside all but faded when we entered that sunlit room attached to the side door. On all sides, large windows sat cracked to let in the humid air that rushed through like tempests, while old Mr. Kern sat beside the window with his legs crossed and a cigarette hanging from his lips, that white stick having grown soggy from the moistness in the air. "Sir, I'd like for you to meet my sister, Bernice," Floyd said. The stern man turned from the window to face us, his nose a pointed peak that pierced just as sharply as his eyes. From his forehead fell beads of sweat, while on his nose, or those parts that were wide enough to collect moisture, clung oily drops that caused his entire face to shine. He removed his cigarette from his mouth and placed it on the tray beside him, taking his handkerchief from his breast pocket. He wiped the sweat from his upper lip and forehead, then placed it onto the arm of his chair, the smoke from his cigarette curling beside it as he watched us. "We all like family here," the old man said in a gruff voice, hocking his pants and coughing loudly. "You good with the missus, you good with me." I had never encountered a man like him before. Mean as the day was long, yet gentle toward a Negro he'd only met once and need show no kindness toward. I watched him intently, forgetting I was there to complete a job and instead studying him as if I worked at his side. Floyd nudged my shoulder, having waited long enough for my response and refusing to wait any longer.